Hello everyone, I'm Rosphere, and in this video, I'm going to talk about badge gear and stats in the history of World of Warcraft. Now, I'm going to do this specifically because recently I watched a video where Preach was talking about how badge gear was a really good thing in the history of World of Warcraft and could be implemented into Shadowlands. And then I saw later that Asmongold reacted to it and was quite literally saying the same thing. Now, if you look back at the history of World of Warcraft, the way that badge gear works is not the way that they're talking about it being implemented, and I think it's more of like a rose-tinted glasses type situation where they're looking back at it as badge gear being this amazing thing, and honestly, it kind of was, but it's not exactly in the way that they're talking about it. So before I start talking about it, I'm going to lay down a little bit of history in World of Warcraft and how stats work, and this actually affects badge gear rather significantly. So if we look at classic World of Warcraft, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's the only iteration of World of Warcraft where stats like crit and hit rating, or crit and hit, were calculated based off of a percentage on the gear. So when you get a piece of gear that has crit on it in classic World of Warcraft, it says plus percentage to crit. It doesn't say plus X number of crit. And the best example I have is here on this character, which I don't have any add-on set up really for, and I don't play anymore. Sadly, it's the first character I ever made. My warrior is honestly my favorite character, and I wish I could still play my warrior. But yeah, if you're playing a warrior in classic or in current WoW, you're just playing it wrong. At least that's the way it feels now, and it's really sad for me. But that's besides the point. I don't really play this character anymore. Just wanted to point that out. So if I look at these legs here, or sorry, where is it? Here we go. So if I see this this belt, now this belt has 15 strength, 26 stamina, 16 crit strike, and 13 versatility. Now, just reading that, I have no idea how much 16 crit strike goes towards my crit strike percent. Now, if you look here on the stats, it shows that I have 24% crit. I don't know if that's good on a warrior or not. It's level 50 warrior anyways, it doesn't matter. But this is 16 crit strike. Doesn't tell me how much it goes towards the percentage, whereas in classic WoW it did. Now, going into Burning Crusade, they changed the way that crit strike and hit worked. They removed the percentages from the items and gave them rating. So your crit rating and your hit rating, when you were, say, your full bist out in Naxxramas gear or whatever on your warrior, and you have X number of crit, when the crit rating converted over, or crit percentage converted over to rating, and the hit percentage converted over to rating, you would generally have been still at hit cap and still been, at the same-ish percentage crit, same-ish percentage for crit. Now, with that being said, every time you leveled up, because it was now rating and no longer percentage, a percentage would carry over each level. So a percentage never changes, right? A crit rating can. So when you're leveling up, say you go from 60 to 61, you'll notice that your crit percent goes down because it's a ratio where for each level you go up, it requires more crit rating to maintain that crit percentage. So that's how they scaled gear. Otherwise, the gear scaling would go absolutely out of control, more so than it already had in Classic, and there'd be nothing they can do about it. So changing these over to ratings made it so that they were able to control the overall percentages within the game much, much easier. So with all that being said, we can look over at badge gear and more itemization in World of Warcraft. Current World of Warcraft, your main stat in Shadowlands is the most important, by far the most important stat as far as like your overall damage output goes, or your healing output goes. It's your main stat, and then secondary stats are quite literally secondary. They don't matter as much, and that makes it much more harder for them to balance things like badge gear, because for the most part, and this isn't 100%, but for the most part, when you look at an item, say these plate legs here are item level 80, right? So the majority of item level 80 plate legs are going to have 21 strength on them, and 37 stamina. The reason for this is because the computer algorithm has said item level 80 gear has X number of main stat. So it's all the same. And that's honestly, that's really bad for an RPG because it kind of ruins the fun in gearing and looking at items being like, oh, I want this one, and I want this one, and changing them out based on situations. So it kind of ruins it as far as item level or as far as gearing goes, which is really sad. But that's how it works in retail World of Warcraft and not like Classic, right? So because in Classic and Burning Crusade and even Wrath of the Lich King, the items were they were handcrafted. They weren't put into an algorithm based on their item level. They were X good. So you couldn't tell how good somebody was based on their item level because item level scales with main stat, and all item level 80 gear is going to have a similar amount of strength, if not the exact same amount of strength. So with that being said, we can look at badge gear and how it was during Burning Crusade. Now, during Burning Crusade, I remember very, very specifically because I wasn't a high-end raider at the time. When Sunwell came out, I was just finishing Tier 5 content, and we were just starting into Tier 6. We were about halfway through Tier 6 content at the time when Sunwell had come out. And that's partly due to the fact that I didn't even start raiding until about halfway through the expansion anyways. But either way, it gives me a semi-unique perspective, at least as far as like Burning Crusade badge gear goes. So if you look here, these two items here, they've obviously changed the weapon speed, which makes this kind of annoying, and I don't really feel like looking up what the old values were. But in Burning Crusade, the main hand was, I don't remember the exact speed, but the main hand was slower, the offhand was faster, and they had different stats. They didn't have the exact same stats, obviously, and I don't even remember if they had strength on them. They might have had agility. Either way, these aren't the same stats that they had on them, and they were itemized terribly. The stats on them were awful for warriors, but the reason why they were good catch-up gear and they were better than what I had currently, because the top-end damage was really, really good. Like, these were really, really good top-end damage weapons. They were above what I could get in most of Black Temple as far as Fury gear goes. I wasn't going to be able to get Warglaives more than likely. I wasn't planning on it, and I never did during Burning Crusade. But these were basically the best items that I could get. But if I were to get Warglaives or I were to get into Sunwell, these were awful. These were not good weapons. Like, they were really, really bad weapons. They were itemized terribly. You didn't want if you were in full Black Temple gear at the time that Sunwell came out, this gear was garbage, right? This was meant as a catch-up for people who were in my situation. So people who were finishing Tier 5, getting through Tier 6, they could come here and be like, okay, well, this piece is slightly better than what I currently have. I can grab this piece and say maybe the legs here were also really good. I'll grab the legs too. So I grab the legs and the main hand, and it kind of rounds out my kit, and I can go into Sunwell over here much more easily. Now, that's the point of badge gear, right? That's the point of what badge gear is. It's not meant to be an, okay, I went and did all these mythic pluses. I want this extra resource so that I can go spend it on an equal item, right? It's not meant to be a backup to, oh shit, I didn't get something. Badge gear was never that, ever, and it never should be. That's not what badge gear was. That's not what badge gear was meant to be, and I don't really understand why Asmongold and Preach are playing it off as if it was, because honestly, their idea isn't necessarily a terrible one. As far as, like, say you get this currency that you can spend on an item. It's like, okay, you do a bunch of M plus 10s, so you get M plus 10 currency, and you can go buy an M plus 10 quality item. There's nothing wrong with that, right? The issue is that badge gear isn't intended to work that way. It's meant to be this catch-up system for people who are in a very unique position as a very unique position where they're kind of in between tiers and they can't really hop up to the next one, and they want to get to the current content faster. That's really what it is. They want to get to the current content faster. Now, we don't have that issue in Shadowlands. So it doesn't really solve a problem in Shadowlands to have something like this Sunwell catch-up gear. So even if you had this, even if you put catch-up gear in as, you know, 4 badges, it would be quite literally pointless, because the people that need the catch-up gear just get it from other sources already. Like, it's so, you get so caught up, you get caught up so quickly in Shadowlands and, you know, BFA and Legion and Warlords. Like, there's literally no reason to have catch-up gear, because it's just thrown at you when you come into the expansion late, so you can just get back into it and play with your friends much more quickly, which kind of takes the feeling of character progression away from the player, and that's another topic for another day. But I just wanted to point out that badge gear never actually worked the way that they're pointing out or saying that it did. And even if badge gear for the situation that they're talking about could be a good idea, that's not what it was intended for, and I don't think it will work out the way that they're hoping, because it's really just going to flood the community with more gear. And honestly, like, the gear is pretty much meaningless anyways. Like I said, if you look here, I'll just mouse over it real quick. This is another example of a really bad item from badge gear. So this was an item you could get. Two-handed axe was actually really good as far as like the damage on it said. So it had decent damage, but the top end was garbage. It was really, really bad. You could get way better from just doing a couple of arena, from, you know, getting an older item even from season 3. The season 3 weapons were equivalent or better to this because they had a slower swing speed and they had a higher top end damage, and therefore your weapon damage would scale more. You know, things like that made it more fun. But if you look here, I have 3 different weapons here on the screen. A item level 33 axe from Burning Crusade, that's 3.6 speed, and then I have 2 weapons on my back that are also 3.6 speed. And I look here, these items are 2.6 speed, 2.6 speed. Like, you're removing stats from the game, and weapon swing speed is actually really unique and fun way to keep items more interesting, right? So this item, this axe, even though its numbers looked decent, the swing speed was too fast, therefore it was terrible, right? It may have been better than what somebody could have gotten, but whenever you saw somebody running around with this axe, you knew they were bad. I knew they were bad because they bought this axe and it was shit. Like, it was, they were walking around telling people that they were bad. That's basically what it was. So, I think I've made my point. The badge gear was never intended to be a replacement for, oh, I didn't get my weekly gear, or I didn't get something good this week. I did a bunch of M+, I didn't get something good. I did all of them. I did every single one of them plus 20, and I didn't get anything good. What the fuck, Blizzard? Like, badge gear was never meant to be that, and I don't think it should be. I think they need to come up with a better solution, and honestly, the better solution is probably just having the gear drop rate increased. So, yeah. With that being said, I hope you all liked the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe. I make videos semi-regularly. I have a bunch more coming out soon, and yeah, with that being said, I will see you in the next one.